up to 20-something billion now in the hands of government. Now we're hearing that they are going to use this money for disposable things and not even to use them to build hospitals. I should have thought that the government would be looking towards the direction of the public health. Let's deal with it once and for all. A situation where Nigerians will go and start having medical treatment abroad after this pandemic. If they do it, that means that we have to forever cost. It doesn't mean that we have learned nothing about what has happened with this pandemic. Even after this pandemic, I'm sure it's not going to be fashionable to say, hey, I'm going to America, and people begin to look at you because it's where those are the places where you go and carry all this deadly sickness and bring to come. If not for those that came from abroad with this particular virus, Nigeria wouldn't have infected. Well, I think that the government should try as much as possible with regards to this pandemic to be a bit transparent. The rumor mill thrives in any society where secrecy becomes actually the directive principle of state policy. It's important that government at any point in time try as much as possible to be very, very, very transparent in any of their transactions. And what I've discovered that in this part of this world is that virtually everyone disbelieves the government. Maybe because as over time we've seen a situation where government will tell you to run, and we find out that the best approach would have been for you to walk, or they ask you to walk, whereas in the real fact they're asking you to run. And so over time, Nigerians tend not to believe their leaders, and it's a very big problem, which I think that the leaders also themselves have to sit down and say, look, how do we really solve this problem of disbelief? People don't even believe us when we say certain things, so it's very critical that government must try as much as possible to be very objective, to be truthful, and maintain a high level of transparency in government policies and pronouncement and action. It is possible that Nigerians will begin to carry rumor or begin to disbelieve what is actually being read out to them daily if they don't have confidence in what is going on. We see what the Americans are doing, or even the European countries. We see them go into the hospital. The cameramen will go there and we see the patients. We see how they are being treated. You don't even need to show their face. You can blank their face out. Let's see those patients that are being treated, by these people in all the isolation centers. Let's see them. Let's now have this idea that we really have patients that are being treated. But the moment we don't have an idea and we are not being shown this figure, these patients, but every day the figures keep on rising, and then some are being discharged, and we're not also seeing as many that are discharged, talking to us. Even though at times you see one or two persons who claim they were victims and they are healed, they're okay. But we've not seen that number of persons, coming out to claim that they were there and they're okay and all that. So it tends to create some level of doubt. Yes, it is important we emphasize this fact. The virus does exist. The issue of coronavirus does exist. It is in existence. Whether it's in Nigeria, it is clearly here in Nigeria. At least we have seen a very important government official, who dropped dead as a result of that sickness, and we have seen a lot of other, the emirs in the north and all that, who have died as a result of the coronavirus. We have also seen some people on television who claim that they were victims, but they are now okay. So I'm not going to doubt the existence of that sickness, and I will not advise anyone to doubt. But we need to be very, very objective and truthful in the handling of the pandemic so that it doesn't create doubt in the mind of Nigerians. The moment government does not operate on transparency, it gives room for things like this suspicion, and then people now begin to think, and then thinking in the negative. But I will not want to indulge and probably say, oh, I doubt, when I don't have any facts to the contrary. So if I have any fact, I can say, look, I'm not too sure. But humanly speaking, I am condemning the lack of transparency. I want to see a more transparent handling of this pandemic. And then I think also that by now, we should have also come out with a better formula how to go about it. I don't want anyone to be threatened, oh, I'm going to lock you people up again if you continue this way. No. I think we must emphasize on the issue of advocacy, education, enlightenment, on the issue of social distancing and observance of the basic rules and regulation in terms of hygienic keeping by Nigerians, and emphasize it and enforce it, but not locking people anymore up. I think that the moment you lock Nigerians up with the kind of environment we're in and all that, you are even endangering them. But when people go out there to look for their daily livings and all that, in fact, since we opened up the economy since Monday, I have received lesser calls in terms of people saying I'm dying of hunger. You must send money and they can send you an account. At least people now can go and hustle. That there's a word we use in Nigeria, hustle and all that. Because people are dependent upon daily sales and upon daily business in order to survive. You don't just go and lock them up and you're not giving them palliatives and you want them to obey the government lockdown policy. They locked down some certain areas in Nigeria and they didn't make any adequate provision. And when they even said they want to transfer money, there was this issue of direct transfers. Up to now, we don't know whether there was any transfer. I have taken time to ask on my Twitter handle, on my Facebook page, whether there is any Nigerian that have actually received this money federal government said they were transferring. And nobody did. And I also asked my friends, of course, you have relations. Maybe I may not have relations that may have fallen into that category and received the money. Do you have any relation that have received this 20,000 or 4,000 or 5,000? And nobody has come up to claim that they have. And so if government comes up tomorrow to come and tell us that they have spent billions, and you ask yourself, and they have spent these billions on Nigerians, you ask yourself how? Because up to now, they have not told us any method they have used even to transfer the money. Even when we have made suggestions, Nigerians were making suggestions, why don't you use the BVN? Majority of Nigerians today have it may not be 100%, it may not even come to the level of attaining that 100% perfection in what we are doing with regards to this palliative, but come up to a certain level, 60, 70%, Nigerians will be happy. But we have not had any person that they have used the BVN to transfer any money into his account. We have not received any such report. We also said, look, why don't you also use maybe INEC model? INEC has the voters register, in which people register up to the polling unit, and I'm sure up to 500 in every polling unit. And politicians know all the polling units in this country. They can also reach out to these people using the voters register, asking everyone that has a voters card to come, and then they will look at your name and tick and give you whatever government has for you as palliative. They did not use other methods. So I am not too happy with that level of governance. And it is not only the federal, the states, the local government, all of them were complete failure in this regard. But I'm not ignorant of the fact that many Nigerians also rose up. Philanthropies came up. In fact, if not for the help of Nigerians showing love to one another, then in my own little way too, I did. In my own village, I sent some bags of rice, and also even going home this weekend to do little also more, because I know that this particular situation, we don't know how long it's going to last. Even now in my home in Lagos here now, I have some rice which also I'm distributing, 5 kg, to my friends who I feel I should be able to reach out to. A lot of Nigerians, the musicians did, the artists, the actors and many footballers, they all did. If not for the help, even the politicians themselves also. I mean, talking about some House of Rest members, even those that gave bread, even those that gave what do you call it, this food that children eat, noodles. Noodles were not in short supply, so they were giving them out. At least we must also appreciate them. If not for those help that came from these people that were not non-governmental agencies and and all that, it would have been very serious for some of the Nigerians, who had nothing to eat, who had nothing in their homes before the lockdown. So what I'm trying to say is that I am not too sure that government has handled this issue of the palliatives, in such a manner that I can say, oh, they did well. I am not too also sure that they will account for the money properly. There are many things we hear about the monies they have received. Remember that EU gave so much millions of euro, to them. We also know that many philanthropies also, instead of donating to the people directly, they gave it to the government, and government up to 20-something billion now in the hands of government. Now we're hearing that they are going to use this money for disposable things, and not even to use them to build hospitals. I should have thought that the government will be looking towards the direction of the public health. Let's deal with it once and for all. And I want to say this. For all these philanthropists, the Dangotes of this world, the Femi Otodolas, for God's sake, after this pandemic, I think all of them should gather together. If the government, fell in the responsibility of providing health care services for Nigerians, first-class standard hospitals, these big men should come together and build these hospitals, standard, world-class. They can choose the 6 geopolitical zone and build one each. Are you following me? Then they leave a legacy. They leave a name for generations born and unborn, and people will remember them. A situation where Nigerians will go and start having medical treatment abroad after this pandemic. If they do it, that means that we have to forever cost. It doesn't mean that we have learned nothing about what has happened with this pandemic. I expect that our leaders will have a rethink, that a time is coming, if care is not taken, where the foreigners will begin to drive us back from their countries, even from the educational sector. If we don't fix our educational sector, something will happen also in the educational sector, just as what has happened in the health sector, where no nation will be able to receive our children in their schools anymore. They will ask you, go and fix your country and fix your educational sector, just as they have done in the health sector. So I want us to fix our health sector, our educational sector, our key infrastructures, the railway system, the road, even energy, power. Let's begin to have constant light in Nigeria. This pandemic is a great lesson for nations. It's a great lesson for Nigeria. Can we learn this lesson and do not fail the people anymore, especially in terms of fixing Nigeria? We have come to the level where this thing has taught us that we must fix Nigeria, that Nigeria belongs to us. Imagine our leaders are no longer allowed to go abroad. It's no longer fashionable to say, I'm going to America, I'm going to Britain. No longer fashionable. Even after this pandemic, I'm sure it's not going to be fashionable to say, hey, I'm going to America, and people begin to look at you, because it's where those are the places where you go and carry all this deadly sickness and bring to God. In fact, if you have stayed here, if not for those that came from abroad with this particular virus, Nigeria wouldn't have infected. So it tells us again that we must begin to fix this country and make this country very conducive for us, for our generation, for generations unborn. And that is the way we can begin to live happily here.